The PlayStation 4 Pro has been getting a lot of reviews because they're moving closer and closer to launch. I think it launches on the
First day,
10th, 11th,
10th,
10th.
10th.
Okay, I knew it was something to do with 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, so reviews are out and they're good, but have shown one major glaring issue. Sony is way too laid back, causing inconsistency on their new platform. Rise of the Tomb Raiders Pro Edition is exactly what the standard should be. The options of 1080p with better graphics, 1080p with higher frame rate, and 4K is a no-brainer strategy moving forward. But what's really weird on top of all this, Jordan, is what's odd is games that target 60 frames per second, like say The Witcher 3, I think isn't capped at 30 if I remember correctly. It's sort of an uncapped frame rate on PS4. So games with uncapped frame rates, let's just say that don't necessarily hit 60 frames per second ever. On the standard PS4, and they're not getting Pro versions, they still have the exact same frame rate despite 2 times the performance. So
That's weird, yeah.
Sony is apparently holding back their entire system and the benefits it could cost. Because if we look at the Xbox One S, for example, games that had unlocked frame rates that didn't hit 60 and fell short a little bit got a boost from the overclocked GPU inside the One S. Now, of course, it wasn't 2 times the performance. It was like a very minor percentage boost, but it still gave extra frames that were able to be analyzed by the folks at Digital Foundry. But when Digital Foundry took Project Cars, they put the game on a standard PS4 against a PlayStation 4 Pro version of it. It basically ran the exact same, and by PlayStation Pro version, I mean running on the PlayStation 4 Pro. They switched the inputs to analyze the frames. It literally ran the exact same, no benefits whatsoever, despite the added performance. That's a big problem. So what's your take about all this? Because the reviews basically rated about an 8 across the board from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean the thing that stood out to me in the reviews was like, if you have a PS4, don't bother. If you are going to buy a new PS4, if you're willing to jump on the PS4 bandwagon, then you should totally get the PS4 Pro, because yeah, you're more like future proof. And if you have a 4K TV, yeah, you should totally do it. But even on 1080p screens, I mean, with the frame rate and stuff like that, you can see some difference and stuff like that. But that's like my problem as a whole with the PlayStation 4 Pro thing, that Sony is not like all in with this at all. Because yeah, I made this point like a couple of times. I don't understand why big, huge games that get played like so much on the system, that with GTA Online we hear the numbers and it's like insane every month. They're like millions of players, and they're not even bothering with the PlayStation 4 Pro version. Well, yeah, maybe those people are going to jump and then they will try the new Rise of Tomb Raider, but yeah, they're done after 10 hours and then they jump back in GTA Online and then they have no benefits at all. So yeah, that's kind of sad, I think. But also with the PlayStation 4 Pro thing, I mean, it's like they have this list and they have this thing going on, and it still feels, and they're doing their New York opening, and it still feels like what's really only benefiting from this are graphics. But if I look at the PlayStation 4 games, I mean, I played the Titanfall single player campaign. It looks fantastic. And if I see that side to side with the PS4 Pro, I will probably be like, whoa. But if I don't know what I miss, I will be fine. And I think that console players are a lot like that. And on the PC, they're like used to boosting stuff up and getting better performances and stuff like that. Well, on the PS4, we're used to having on the console, we're used to having a console for 5 years and then have a great leap. So, and this is also not a significant leap whatsoever, because it's obviously they still need to run the PS4 games. So it will be more interesting to watch this with the Scorpio, I think. And they're like now saying, yeah, all the games will be native 4K, blah, 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 blah. So they're like way more on board with this. Though this PS4 Pro really feels like a middle step and not really interesting. I mean, there are like some stores that are, where you can like give your PS4 and pay $200 to get a PS4 Pro, but that's not. I think $200 is like still, yeah, a lot. Even maybe if you have the money lying around or have a 4K TV, then it would be, yeah, then you could maybe do it. But I really hope that, for example, the loading times would be better as well, or something like that. But you already explained that that would not be
All about the
possible.
hard drive. All about
Yeah,
that
yeah.
hard drive.
And I saw some of course some people made like the comparisons, and yeah, there was no difference at all. So it was like maybe 1 second, but that could depend on so many things. So it was not
Yeah.
really. I mean, if they had like yeah, if they had like, for example, split screen on the PS4 Pro and not on the PS4, then I would be like, wow, this is awesome. I mean, split screen is not a feature that you need. If you don't have split screen, you will probably be fine in most cases. But to have the option to have it there, because obviously split screen requires a lot from the platform, and a lot of developers are saying, no, we're moving away from split screen because, yeah, the game will just run really bad and it's hard to do. Well, with the PS4 Pro, they could maybe do it. So if developers are also more like, okay, we're really going to support this thing, and I don't really see that. We talked about the Final Fantasy quote, for example, where they were like, yeah, we're having a hard time finishing this game because they don't want to delay that again. And so we will update the PS4 to PS4 Pro like later and do a PC version also later, because we really need to focus on this experience first. And with AAA games and, for example, Sony games taking so long to add another layer above that, and Sony is saying, no, it only takes 1% development, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's, I mean, if I hear the Final Fantasy guys, that's not really true. And of course they are saying that, but yeah, you still need to do it. You still need I don't know if it's true, but I can imagine that you still need to, pass the certification like another time for this console. And man, it's like, I mean, at Crystal Dynamics, they did a really good job, but they also are like, they really want to push this PS4 version. They're only launching on PS4 right now. Their Xbox One and PC version are already done behind them. While with other games, they have the Xbox One version, PS4, PC. So, and then to also have this PS4 Pro version, yeah, I understand why it would be hard for them. And I mean, Sony could push all they want, and we also talked about this a little bit, behind the scenes, to call it that, where, you said Sony need to push them, and of course they have to. But on the other hand, when they came out of the gate with the PS4, they were like, we listened to the developers. This is like super easy to develop for, blah, blah. And now they made it more complicated. So it's like, are you now stepping away from that problem? So they don't want to step away from that entirely by not pushing the developers too hard to make games for the PS4 Pro. While they obviously want it, but then they give like them options to do, okay, if you just want one mode, do it. Of course, the exclusive, the first party developers, Horizon, will probably have a ton of 4K capabilities, stuff like that. While, Ubisoft can do whatever they want. I mean, Sony would be happy to have this as a PS4 Pro version, but that's what makes this console not very interesting to me, to not see everyone on board, to not really see a huge difference if you don't have a 4K TV. And even if you have a 4K TV, okay, it looks better, but that doesn't make the Call of Duty campaign suddenly way better than it already is, or the Titanfall 2 campaign. Titanfall 2 campaign still doesn't have any cool cutscenes or something like that. So
it's really a interesting thing, our human eye, because it's you brought up the fact that a lot of people, they don't really know exactly sort of what maybe they're missing, or what is on the new platform, because they haven't seen it yet, so it's not in their mind of what that could be. They have an idea, but they don't really know whether or not that idea in their mind would be fulfilled entirely. And so they're used to seeing particular types of graphics, different artifacts that maybe I'm not used to seeing, and different blurs that I'm not used to seeing on the PC. Where for myself, for me, going back to the reason why I got rid of my PS4 is I couldn't stand the graphics that the console produces. Because I've had a GTX 1080 now for a while. I had a 980 before that, and a 770 before that, and a 760 before that. I like upgrading. It's a fun thing for me because I get to open my computer up, I get to test it out, I get to put a new part in, I get to play a bunch of games that I played before and test out a bunch of frame rates and see new graphics and see what else it could do. It's a fun thing for me. But for myself, when I go into a new game and I get awed for the first time, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I think a lot of people on consoles, same thing. If they came on the PC and played it, they're like, wow, that's amazing. And then they go back on consoles and be like, oh, this is not as good. And if they do that with the PlayStation 4 Pro and there's demo stations out there that they get to try out, that might entice more people to get it because they'll get that imprint in their mind of, wow, that looks amazing. They'll go home, play that same game, and it'll look substantially worse. It's a trick it's a trick that our mind has, that we get used to what we see. It doesn't mean that A and B are the same thing and A and B are equally as good. No, it still means that B, in this case PlayStation 4 Pro, is better statistically, just visually and everything. But because you're so used to A, you don't really care that much. It's not really a problem to a lot of people. And so what I see as an issue for Sony is because they're not pushing it that hard. And of course, it's just now about to launch. Maybe they'll push it really hard in the future. But the biggest issue I see with companies that are very successful is they hit the idle button and they don't keep pushing forward. And that's what happened with Blizzard, and that's why they went through turmoil for a bit. Maybe not turmoil is the best word, but that's why a lot of people weren't really super hyped about them until Overwatch came along, until Legion came along, until Heroes of the Storm got more fleshed out, until Hearthstone came along, because they needed a spark again in that office, and they got that spark. And I think a lot of people at that office are very hyped. They're feeling passionate again, and I feel like a lot of corporations and that corporate way of thought is once you're successful, just sort of idle a bit and maybe to keep doing a good bit of that successful thing. With Sony, it's greatness awaits. We're not seeing a lot of first-party titles released, but we keep seeing awesome gameplay trailers for them, so they must be a thing, right? And so we get hyped for it. People buy the console. They expect to play those games, and we will eventually play those games. But it's taken a while. And yes, you can't just program a game in a day and release it. It would be terrible. But at the same time, Sony is so lax that I would swear that they live in Colorado, they live in my state or whatever, and they went to a marijuana shop and smoked the entire thing because they just totally laid back, and it doesn't seem like they care to capitalize. And as a company like Sony, that isn't super great right now in terms of their other SKUs. They need the PlayStation brand to set a standard, to be that particular part of the company that drives it forward, and they have the potential to do that with the highest amount of consoles in the sort of space to sort of sell games out to. They're not using any of that as leverage. They're not pushing a standard of this is what you're doing to PlayStation 4 Pro, this is what we expect from you. At least a minimum of a 1080p with higher graphical fidelity. You can maybe push for a higher frame rate if you want to, and then a 4K mode. That's at least what we want. We don't want you to just be like, oh, well, we're just going to do a 4K mode, and I put it in quotes in our notes because it's not actually 4K.
No, I know.
And that's really the thing. Like, they need to have a standard, and they don't right now. And even with VR, they're not really pushing that much. They're sort of just, they have their launch lineup that is a good bit of games and everything. But what we've even seen on Steam is there's a lot of VR experiences, but the genre hasn't really advanced. That platform really hasn't advanced that much. Maybe that's because people are trying to get educated on it. I don't think so. I think it's just because there's not enough people on it. And so if PlayStation 4 Pro runs into the fact that not a lot of people buy it, what happens then? Is Sony just going to drop it entirely and just be like, oh, well, we're just going to release random iterations every once in a while. They might not give you benefits. They might, who knows? That would create a huge confidence issue. And that's why the Scorpio is such a monumental thing right now, because the ball is in Microsoft's court. Phil Spencer holds the fate of Sony in his hands. He could squish them like a bug. he could squish them so badly with the Scorpio.
But that's only if powerful consoles are like really important, and I don't believe that that's really a thing. I mean, they're the biggest, like, that's the problem with this, and Sony already said that the PS4 Pro is more focused to the PC gamer. So that's, I mean, that's good. That's for them. That's good, because a lot of players
that's their failure though. Is PC players don't really care about console that much. Like, we sometimes buy them for the exclusives, but when they're not releasing exclusives, then why would we buy it?
But on the other hand, the FIFA players, the Call of Duty players that are like probably half of the people that have the PlayStation 4, or maybe even more, they don't care about their field looking a little more greener or something like that. I don't even know if FIFA has an update, but still, that doesn't really matter in the end. So, and for example, with Call of Duty, okay, it looks a little bit better, but you play that game for the gameplay, for the multiplayer, so if they don't benefit that, then there's no reason for them to go out and spend way more dollars while they just buy 2 games every year. So why would they then suddenly go out and buy a PS4 Pro?
But Jordan, I don't want to. I hate to cut you off, and I don't mean to be.
No.
But why did we move away from the NES graphics days then? It worked. The gameplay was fun. And
yeah, but no, I agree. But the games can look better, but the move from PS4 to PS4 Pro is not that significant.
It's all about timing is basically what I sort of was about to say, and what you're sort of elaborating. It's about timing, because you have to have the technology there that people already have in their hands,
and exclusive
to get
games.
that. And the exclusive games, they get that benefit out of it, so people realize what they could have. Because if Sony decided to do this, and that's why I think, once again, the Scorpio, Phil Spencer has the fate of Sony in his hands right now, depending on how he does it. If he's not sitting in a room planning out his strategy extensively, and how he's
whole
gonna
evil plan
every time he does an interview, if he doesn't already have a script in his mind that he's going to go through and just plot and have a great strategy here, he's an idiot, because he has a huge potential here, especially with Black Friday around the corner and 4K TVs going to be flying off the shelves. Soon people are going to have 4K TVs. Soon people are going to see 4K media, and once they see 4K media, they can then draw the difference between A and B. They could see that difference. They can take off their foggy glasses and be like, wow, that is amazing. And if the Scorpio is the first thing that they see executing it really well, what are they going to buy? The Scorpio.
PS4 Pro. Yeah, because the PS4 Pro will be like old news.
Exactly.
Yeah, old news. You want the new thing, and it will be way more powerful than the PS4 Pro, obviously. But I think that they will all go and buy a Nintendo Switch in the end. Because,
they'll play their Nintendo Switch blown up to
720p. Yeah.
God.
I think that will be that's like the conclusion. I mean, in the end, it's all about the games, and I still believe that if Microsoft is going to come out with the Scorpio and still have like their lineup of exclusive games that they have right now, it's still not interesting for a lot of people, and they will stick to the PlayStation, because Horizon, Horizon is like whooping the ass of all the exclusives on the Xbox One, in my opinion, right now, and Uncharted 4 as well. That's way more interesting than a Quantum Break. Although I love that, I really like that game, but Uncharted 4 is a whole other level. And so they can have the best console and the best graphics, but the games really matter in the end, I believe. And maybe I mean, it will be. It's so interesting, man. 2017. The more we talk about it, every year you're like, okay, well, the next year will be super interesting, because the last year we were like, okay, Nintendo is probably going to announce their console and release it next year. Well, it's not all going to happen in 2017. Yep. Scorpio, Switch. We will have maybe PlayStation 5 news. If Sony's really want to counter the Scorpio, they have to do something, right? Or they will just release a bunch of awesome exclusive games. So we will win either way.
Soon if they did that, though. Oh my, that's another reason
they're not gonna do that. Maybe 2018, but
Phil Spencer could be the MVP of Microsoft if they don't. If he plays his cards right. Oh my God, like I see the opportunity in my mind if I was in his shoes, and it just blows my mind how much he could just completely outplay Sony here. And this could put Sony back in the same place that they were with the PlayStation 3 if it's done properly. And I guess it just depends with Phil Spencer. Does he have the heart of the cards?
I mean, he said that the Xbox One and Xbox 360 games will be backwards compatible, so that also indicates a little bit to me that the Scorpio will indeed have exclusive games, so it will indeed start a new kind of generation, and then Sony will be like later, they will have a new console like the year after that. So then Microsoft is leading the card again, and they really, I mean, they're doing great right now. They have some cool games, but I still believe that, for example, the Xbox One name is really holding them back as well. The like marketing around that thing when it was revealed still hurts them, and if they get away from that, then all their like good initiatives like the backwards compatibility and stuff like that will have a way more impact than they have right now. So yeah,
and that's really the thing. As long as they don't come out saying TV, then they'll definitely probably succeed with the Scorpio. And so 2017 is definitely going to be a very intriguing year to behold, and everything's going to sort of climax at that point. Will we see Sony actually start caring and start moving things along? Will the PlayStation 4 Pro even be a thing by the time we hit E3? As far as, obviously interest, it's not just going to go away.
No, they're not going to put it out. I mean, the sales are pretty good right now. People are like, Amazon is like, no, we don't have one till Christmas or something like that. So that's insane.
That's good to see then.
But then that's also with the VR. Sorry, that's also like with.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, go.
The VR is like insanely interesting with the PlayStation 4 Pro. I mean, that's like the one thing that I'm super interested about, because there are a lot of VR games like compatible with the PlayStation 4 Pro. Somehow they managed to get their shit together in that type of thing, and then they also look like way better. And that's like what I say about the PlayStation 4 games. I'm like, I don't need a new console. I'm fine with how it looks right now, and I'm not used to like the ultra graphics on PC, so having a Titanfall 2 campaign look the way it does on PS4 is fine for me. But for PSVR, it's like, okay, I wish the graphics were better. It doesn't really breaks the immersion for me, but to have a better experience doing VR stuff and really feeling you're more in the world because it looks better, that really has a purpose. That really, that really makes me care about graphics so that's super interesting that the PS4 Pro brings that to the table, and Sony should push that way more. But they're like obviously scared that people that bought the VR with their like normal unit are like, whoa, okay, it looks way better here. Oh man, I feel screwed right now, and I already spent like $500 on this thing, so you want me to spend $400 again? Whoa. So that will be hard for them to market, and that's why they are not pushing it. While I think in the end the like big gain here is the PlayStation VR. Moving forward as well.
And that's really a tightrope that they're walking right now. Is what do they do to amplify all this without burning what they've already built? And that's the scary part for Sony, because it really comes down to the fact that Phil Spencer is seen as a really good figure right now, and he's been doing everything for the most part right. Some of the things he says in interviews is completely asinine, but I think sometimes he stays up too late playing video games because he seems like an actual gamer instead of just a suit, and he just sometimes goes and does these interviews half asleep and says stupid stuff. It happens. It happens to all of us, and it sucks that he happens to be the head doing that, but it is what it is. But,
he just had a bad night the day before, man.
It is what it is, and I feel like, which is really weird, that Microsoft with Phil Spencer cares more about the gamers right now than Sony does, because that just shows how much idling scares the hell out of me as a consumer. I want to see you constantly pushing, and that's what I'm seeing with Phil Spencer. He's hustling. He's still not selling Xbox Ones. I mean, they're now at least competing, but it's not going to ever catch up to what the PS4 did. But he's trying, because he knows that when they release the Scorpio or the next Xbox, if the Scorpio is the iteration, which I doubt that is the case, but if it is, he knows that the next thing is going to sort of culminate with all that progress and give them the possibility of becoming the big dog again. Instead of being the second, they can now be the first. And Sony's doing everything to allow that instead of crushing them where they're at. And that's a problem. And it's like we keep saying, 2017, guys, it's going to be a really, really fun thing to watch.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that wraps everything up.